night, we had the think tank, which would have been on July 7th. And you can now find that at the Unfound YouTube channel where you are watching this video right now. If you missed it, it was 90 minutes of nothing but talk about Molly Miller and Colt Haynes's disappearance. I thought it was a good chance for people to kind of get a feel for what goes on the think tank on Sunday nights for those who aren't signed up on Patreon. So if you liked it, please, if you enjoyed that discussion on Sunday night, really getting into the nuts and bolts of a disappearance, then I encourage you to sign up on Patreon. Of course, there are other things that go along with signing up at the $12 a month level. But that's one of the major ones. I think that's why a lot of people do sign up for that level, because of getting a little more one-on-one time maybe with me, with other listeners, and really diving in deep to the case for that week. Hello, Little Bit, and Concha, and Rick, and Addicted, and Joyce sent you a message, Joyce. I hope you saw it there. Heather, Cherie, wielding the wrench. Katrina, Mimi, Jasmine, LaFord, Carol, Paula, Laura, Jessica, Bree, everyone, thank you for tuning in tonight. Got a lot to talk about. Got some questions to answer. As I put in the description for this show tonight, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Thomas Brown case, not so much about the case itself, but something that happened on July 4th last week. I think many of you already know what happened there, but I'm going to be talking about that. Going to give you my opinions on it, and that's all they are opinions. I don't know anything about the incident any more than I think any of you do, unless you don't know about it at all, of course. So I'll be talking about that. Of course, as always, we will preview this coming Friday's disappearance, which is the disappearance of Donnie Martin III from Madison Heights, Michigan on August 3rd of 2017. Let's see who else is in here. Charlotte, good to see you. Yeah, Joyce, you can give me a call, but probably maybe tomorrow, Joyce. Probably tomorrow will be better to call me sometime tomorrow than after the show tonight. Just a suggestion. But where do I want to start off? Just maybe with a couple personal things. I played in a disc golf tournament this past weekend on Sunday, this past Saturday, up in a place called Hudson, Florida, which is about an hour north of here. Never played the course before, never to Hudson before. So I was playing the course, what we call blind. So every basket, every hole that you get to, I'd never seen it before. So, but I didn't play bad. I actually was very pleased with how I played, had a good time, saw a lot of guys that I really know well, get to play with some of them, really good guys. Had some good food in between rounds. It rained a little bit and thundered and lightninged, and we had to start the second round a little late, like an hour and a half late, but that was fine. Overall, it was a very good time. I'm glad I went up there. I'm glad I played. And even though I didn't finish very well, I was pretty happy with the way I played once again, especially considering that I'd never seen the course before in my life, and I didn't even play most of the baskets until it actually counted during the round. I actually posted a picture in between rounds on my Facebook page, so if you are friends with me on Facebook, you can see it there. You can see what I look like out on the disc golf course. So who else do we have in here? Have quite a few viewers in tonight. That's good. So that was the first thing. And the next tournament I'm going to be playing is going to be Labor Day weekend, and that is a 3-day tournament. So Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday, which is Labor Day. That'll be over in Orlando, and I'm really looking forward to that. I hope to play well, hope to have my mind in the right place, and I'll be going over there early, maybe Thursday, something like that, but I can take my equipment with me. Hey, W, what's going on? Got a little haircut. And the reason I got my haircut, not a lot. In fact, I don't. I'm looking at my hair right now, not liking it. But I thought I needed to get it cut just a little bit because, um, as I think I mentioned in one of the most recent episodes, and I know I mentioned it in the newsletter that came out on July 1st. What's up, Bryce? That I will be getting interviewed for a missing persons documentary next Monday morning. They're going to be here Monday morning. They're coming to my place. We're either going to film it in my place here or down, and they have like a gathering room down on the second floor of this building, depending, because they've been doing some improvements on some of the condos, apartments around mine, and you can hear the vibrations and everything, which would not be good in an interview situation. So I went and reserved the room downstairs just in case. So we have a backup plan if we're in here and there's like, I think what they've been doing is some of the tiles on the floors of the condos slash apartments in this building, they go bad after a while, and I think that in some of the places they're replacing them, so I have to kind of grind them out and stuff, and they could be a couple floors away and you can still hear it. So I wanted to make sure, being that this guy's coming down the whole way from New York, that we had a backup plan. I didn't want him to get here and then we're stuck because of sound. So made a backup plan. I'm really looking forward to this. I don't know how long he's going to be here on Monday. My understanding is he's going to be meeting some of the former guests of Unfound while he was here. However, I've not talked to him specifically about that. I'm sure it'll come up when I see him on Monday. And once again, the documentary is not about me. I'm just one person of a few people who are being interviewed, and I'm really looking forward to it. I really don't know how long it'll go on Monday. Probably no more than a few hours. But that's the reason I got my hair cut a little bit. But if you're wondering where this hair is going, I'm actually thinking about going like a John Wick, Keanu Reeves direction, where eventually I'm going to probably be parting it in the middle, something like that. Just to throw that out there. It's a thought. But I do know that my hair is going to be getting longer, but I didn't want it to be too unruly for next Monday. Meetups. Let's talk about some meetups. Marcus, what's going on? Good to see you tonight. Thanks for making the time. Next, the meetups. July 14th, which is Sunday. So July 14th in Dallas at Ojeda's, OJEDA''S. It's going to start at 2:30 there. My assistant Emily is going to be there. I know one of Unfound's contributors, Dee. She's the person who always posts the camel pictures on Wednesdays. She will be there. So if you are in the area, if you're within an hour and a half, feel like meeting Emily, if you want to know who Emily is, she's my assistant. She's been with me for over 2 years now. I think we got started working together in May of 2017, but a lot of the guests that you hear on the program are found by her. And if you'd like to meet her, like to talk to her about what she does, she'll be there. Of course, you can do whatever you're going to do. And I'm hoping that Emily and Dee have maybe some itinerary of some kind. I have no idea. But if you'd like to meet Emily, being that I mention her so much because she does so much for the program, she will be there. And then if you'd also like to meet the woman that posts all the camera pictures, she's going to be there too. So I'm really looking forward to that. That look would look good to me, the John Wick look a little bit. Okay, well, that's the direction I'm going. Don't know when I'm gonna start implementing it. I think my hair still needs to get a little longer, but there you go. Concha says she is going to be there in Dallas. Concha, that's spectacular. Great news. Good. Little Bit said, would love to see you guys We'll love to see you guys who can make it. A little bit, I guess. Yeah, that'll be great. I'm not expecting a drove of people, and I really don't know what Emily and Dee are expecting, but just to have a small group, I maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 people, I think would be kind of cool. Like I said, it's the first time it'll be held there in the Dallas area, so my expectations are modest. I just love it that this is something that's very grassroots. That hasn't been arranged by some company, hasn't been arranged by me. Yes, I know Emily is my assistant, but she's doing this, and she and Dee are doing this totally on their own, and of course I'm supporting them in that. There's a meetup going on in Dallas, Darla, Sunday, July 14th at 2:30 in the afternoon at Ojeda's, Ojeda apostrophe S. Michelle, that'd be great if you could make the meetup. I'm sure that they'd be glad to have you there. So that's the closest one. That is the one that's going to be coming up next, first. I guess you might put it that way. And then the next one is going to be 2 weeks from today. It is going to be in Amarillo. This will be the second one in northern Texas. And it is being hosted, it is being organized by the same woman who did it last year, Charmin. I'm sure you've seen her posting about it in the discussion group. And that'll be at Abuelo's, Abuelo apostrophe XS, Abuelo apostrophe S, Abuelo's Mexican restaurant, and that will be starting at 6 p.m. in Amarillo, and that'll be the second one there. I'm anticipating, of course, I don't draw up her itinerary, but I believe that Thomas Brown's mother Penny will be there, and maybe some other people in his family. But I think that their plans are to be there. I'm also told that Charmin is going to be trying to get some local media to show up. Of course, she has my blessing with all of that. So that'll be July 24th, so exactly 2 weeks from today. Carrie, what's going on? Good to see you. So there's that. So we got a couple meetups happening. I mentioned and then the third one, I think Cherie is still trying to put something together in August, maybe in Houston. And then, of course, she's saying it right now. Thank you. I'm going to just read what Cherie's writing. Cherie is saying, we have enough interest in Houston, so it'll be in August sometime. No sure of the date yet, as my son is coming home from his deployment. Okay. So sometime in August, there'll be one in Houston. So we got 3 in Texas and 0 for the rest of the United States. All right, people. I know that Miranda is trying to organize one somewhere up in the New England states, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Vermont, Rhode Island, Maine. And if you live in that area, please find her in the group. I think she's the only Miranda in the entire discussion group on Facebook. Please find her. I know she's trying to make something happen up there. That would be the first one, of course, outside of Texas. And then I know Jill is trying to put something together in Arizona, I believe. It's Arizona. So there you go. So if you're, she's also in the discussion group. So if you can find Jill, she's posted something about it for Arizona. Maybe something can happen there yet. No, you didn't miss the Thomas Brown info yet, Charlotte. No, you didn't. Paula says you can't wait for the Amarillo meetup. I think it's going to be a very good time for everyone to get together, Paula. Yeah, Michelle. Michelle says we are some Mexican-eating people here in Texas. For sure. You're not very late at all, Valerie. Not at all. Okay. So there's that. We got the meetups happening once again. All of them are in Texas right now. I'd like to see some other states catch up, but it's totally up to you. It's totally a grassroots effort. Think Tank. I had mentioned it at the beginning here. I want to mention it again. We had a really good time, really good discussion Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. It was the first free think tank. Now it's going to go back to being restricted again on Sunday. Back to those people who are contributing at the appropriate level. the required level on Patreon, which is $12 a month. But I thought Sunday night was a good time for everyone to see what we do there, and that video will remain for free. That particular one from July 7th will remain for free forever, and it is on the Unfound YouTube channel right where you are watching this right now. It's about 90 minutes long. We really get down deep into certain questions regarding Molly Miller and Colt Haynes's disappearance. If you had a good time on Sunday night, you enjoyed it, you think you have some ideas and theories and things that can help other people understand a disappearance that you believe should be passed on to the guest and the family, then you should think about joining on Patreon. What else do you get besides the think tank at the $12 a month level? You automatically get at least 3 ebooks for free. The Unfound, of course, we have 6 out now. You get at least 3 of the ebooks for free. Maybe now that there's more ebooks, maybe I'll be kicking that up to 4. And then you also get access to the blog that I personally write every week, every Friday, that goes along with every case. And I've been doing that since August of 2017. So once you sign up at that level, you get the ebooks, you get the think tank, and you get access to all the blogs. And I've written one every Sunday, every Friday, except the weeks there were no episodes. That was right around when my mother died. So you're going to have access to almost 100 blogs to read just by signing up on Patreon right now. That's a lot of reading, and each one of them is about, I'd say the average is about 2,500 words long. So, you get quite a bit, and so I think you should consider it. Not begging, just I think there's a lot of value there. And then on top of the think tank every week, etc. And then, of course, once in a while, we do some things for Patreon supporters that maybe are a little surprise to them. Yeah, Cherie says, so happy to have all of you join us for the think tank. And I want you to know something. It was Cherie's idea to make a think tank free just so everybody could see what we do there. And it's the only thing of its type. No other podcast, no other program does that, where where a host gets together with the listeners and we talk one-on-one, or not one-on-one, but as a group, kind of a discussion table about a particular disappearance, really, really in depth. We're the only place that does that. And if you'd like to be a part of that, think about it. Carrie says the think tank is an amazing brainstorm session. That's exactly what it is. Valerie says the think tank was awesome. I got to sign up. Valerie would love to have you. Cherie says the blogs alone are worth it. Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Cherie. So that's what we did. If you missed it, once again, don't feel bad. The free think tank is there. You can listen to it in your car. You can watch it in bed in the morning or at night. If you're enjoying the summer weather here, it's free. But all of the other think tanks before it, and now for the foreseeable future, will go back to being restricted. The Miller-Haynes poll, most people believe that Con and others harmed Molly and Colt, harmed them together. Okay, so there were a couple different choices that I had in that poll in the group, and one was that Con got somebody else to do it. Of course, one of them was that Con had nothing to do with it. Con did this by himself, but a large majority of you said that Con and others harmed Molly and Colt, and that's what caused their disappearance. This maybe even got that idea for those of you that were all in the think tank on Sunday night, and even me for a guy who wrote about it, 3,000 some words on last Friday for the blog on Patreon. I have to admit, it's a case where it's difficult to visualize all the moving parts. It's almost like a like a chessboard or something like that, where you have these figures and this person was at this time and over here. That's almost what you have to do in that case, and I have not done that. Maybe somebody will do that. Try to figure out where these people say they were and could this have happened, and because there's many moving parts, and it's hard to visualize. And where was this person? Where was that person? What time? What distance? Because all of it is important in that case and trying to understand it. And I think, trying to get closer to what actually did happen. Okay, but the vast majority of you believe Khan and others together harmed Molly and Colt. Once again, just an opinion. We don't go after people on Unfound. All we're doing is presenting the information and people come to their own conclusions. Carrie says the think tank right now is small enough that it almost feels like one-on-one. That's true, Carrie, and that's why I'm trying to keep it a little restricted. That's why it's at the $12 a month level. We want to keep the discussion very, once again, one-on-one, so everybody's ideas and opinions, thoughts can be heard. You get too many people in there and get a little cluttered. Hello, Charmin. What's going on? I think I was just talking about you a little bit about your meetup in Amarillo on July 24th. Frank, what's going on? You missed a little bit, Frank, but of course you can always watch later. Darla, I'm going to watch the free episode. Definitely going to order it if I like it. Darla, please consider it. I appreciate you giving it a chance. Shuri, right, Carrie, I really look forward to the think tank. Learning so much. Even when I think I have it all figured out, I love hearing and thinking about different possibilities. Totally true. Michelle says she sets an alarm on her phone so she doesn't miss this on Wednesday nights. Well, I'm flattered, Michelle. Paula, if anyone from around Lubbock wants to go to Amarillo for the meetup, message me. Yes, would love to have some people from Lubbock making the drive. I'm sure they would love to have some people driving from Lubbock to Amarillo for the meetup. Of course, we've covered a couple disappearances there. In fact, of course, with Zoe Campos' case in particular, of course, Jennifer Wilkerson. And, of course, we cannot forget the Amarillo disappearance that we covered recently, Monica Appleton. I'm hoping that one of her family members can make it to that meetup, but in talking to Donnie, I think he's going to be out on the road or something. But hope springs eternal. Maybe they'll find some time. The MX, how are you? Watching from West Virginia. Okay. Texas is corrupt. Okay, Texas. Katrina, if Khan claims to have not seen them, what explains Molly and Colt in his girlfriend's car? Katrina, I don't know if we're ever. I don't know if we're ever going to answer that. We've been over and over it. I don't know if we're ever going to get an adequate explanation to that. What else is going on? Next Thursday, I'm going to probably be out of communication for most of that day. So a week from tomorrow, I am driving down to Sunrise, Florida. Actually, I'm driving to Fort Lauderdale, which is about a 4-hour drive from here. I'm picking up one of my best friends of all time, Doug. He's flying in from North Carolina. And we are going to the Iron Maiden show in Sunrise, Florida next Thursday night. It's their first show on their new tour in the United States. And so they're going to be starting it's called the Legacy of the Beast tour. I know that for some of you it's like, what? But they're gonna be touring the United States, and their first show is in Sunrise, Florida. We already have our tickets. I'm picking them up at the airport. We're going to go to the show. I'm going to stay overnight down there, and then I think we're going to go to the gun range on Friday. I made contact at a gun range place down there. Probably going to go do a little shooting with the guns that I'll bring along, and then he'll be flying back to North Carolina that afternoon. So I'm going to probably be out of communication a little bit. Of course, it seems like I'm always online to take questions and things. But next Friday, Thursday, be driving, picking him up, probably go to eat, check in at the motel that he reserved. Then we're going to go to the concert, stay over down there, go shooting the next day, and then I'll drop him off at the airport, and I'll come back Friday afternoon, Friday evening. But don't worry, though. Episode will get loaded up. Probably be early next Friday, probably. Probably when I get up in the morning before we leave the hotel, I'll probably use their Wi-Fi to upload the episode. So, um, that's what's going on there. Just wanted to warn you about that. Of course, I'll mention that again next week. Um, Awake and Asleep Sheep. I'm looking forward to catching up. I'm in Florida, West Coast. Well, I'm going to be over on the West Coast, lower West Coast next week. Second, Amy brother was missing for 3 months and found dead later. Proceeded. That's why I do activism. So don't just check out. Texas. This is not the place to publicize your own stuff. Okay, it's not. All right, this is not some open forum for anything. I feel bad what happened to you and everything, but that's not really what we do here. And of course, on top of everything else, I feel horrible for you, but we really only do disappearances here. So I just want you to keep that in mind as you continue to comment. So there you go. Interview Spotify. I know some of you had problems with Spotify last Friday. It seemed like it got sorted out by maybe Saturday or Sunday, but this is like maybe the third or fourth time when an episode was short. So, of course, that was one of the longest episodes we've ever done. The Miller-Haynes case, and it was over 3 hours long, but on Spotify it was only a half hour long. It is fixed now. Maybe a little too late for some of you, but I think it eventually got fixed. Maybe when I was disc golfing on Saturday, maybe it happened. I think fairly quickly, because I think on Monday I noticed that it was 3 hours. It was the proper length. So sometime during last weekend, I know some of you let me know about that, and I appreciate you listening on Spotify, but this is like the third or fourth time that it's happened. Totally out of my hands, unfortunately. It's a connection problem between Podomatic and Spotify. I do not send the file directly to Spotify. Podomatic does that for me. And once in a while they have some issues. Hey, For Life, what's going on? Miranda, I was just talking about you, talking about how you're trying to organize a meetup in the New England states. So I gave a shout out to you. Hopefully some people will contact you. I know we have listeners up there, so I hope you can make that happen. So we got Spotify. Let's take a question. Charmin, who is in here, who is also organizing the meetup in Amarillo, had asked me how to submit cases. Well, if there is a case that you know about, that you're interested in, that you think needs attention, that hasn't gotten attention, I'm not saying you have to make it totally easy for us, is just lay out all the information. But it certainly helps if you know somebody connected to the case or something like that. If somebody's just going to go on Charlie Project and just start going down the list and just send me something, hey, why don't you do this one? Why don't you do that one? I have to be honest with you, that's probably not going to get Emily and my attention. Okay, because we get a lot of that. However, the person that contacts me or her, you can contact Cherie. The person who says, you know what, I'm familiar with this case. I met the mother of this missing young man back in 2014 in an event, and this is her email address, or this is her website, or this is her Facebook page, and I think that is going to go a lot farther toward us trying to cover it than the person who is just, randomly going through Charlie Project and emailing us saying, hey, do this case, hey, do that case, hey, do that case. Because most of the time, what is happening between myself, Emily, Cherie, Eric, anybody else who has brought cases to Unfound, is there's usually a personal connection made first, and going from there. Okay. And that's what Emily mostly is always trying to do. So if you'd like to have a case, us dig into it, do what we do on Unfound, then the best way to make that happen is to, when you contact me or Emily, or once again, whoever, it should be along the lines of, hey, I know about this case. I've been following it for a while. I saw this article here where the mother says she is looking, to get the word out about the disappearance of her daughter. And this is her website, and this is the Facebook page, etc. Okay, you do that, you have an excellent chance of seeing that case or hearing that case on Unfound in the future. However, if you're just going randomly down Namus or Charlie Project and just emailing case, your chances of being successful are probably very, very low. Okay, so that's how cases are most likely to get covered by Unfound. Miranda, yes, I am. Thank you. If anyone is interested, just comment on my post in the discussion group. There she is, everyone, from Miranda. Anybody from Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. Am I forgetting any states up there? You should contact Miranda, who is in the chat room right now, if you'd like to meet up and have an event up in that area. Debbie, what's going on? Oh yeah, for life. That's you, Abby. Okay, well, yeah, we're gonna make that happen. Those signed books are gonna happen, Abby, for sure. Yeah, no unsolved murder cases, only missing people. Yes. I have one. Debbie says I have a case. I'll email it to you, Ed. Okay, great, Debbie. Just once again, check your criteria. Check the criteria that I just talked about. We'll certainly raise the chances of us covering it. And then I know once in a while that I have to remind people that we don't do murder cases. Okay, we don't. I feel horrible for those people. But our specialty here is missing persons cases, and that's all we're ever going to do. That's all, even though we suspect that a lot of them are murders. When we mean murders, we mean there's a body and things like that. We do where nothing is, no remains have been found, no body has been found, etc. That's what we do. Miranda, New York is close enough too. Okay, Miranda, thank you. Okay. Carrie, when you get a chance to Miranda, comment on your post to bump it to the top. I know they get lost easy with all the posts. Yeah, Carrie, thank you for suggesting that. Charmin, yes, Dallas meetup is coming up on Sunday, Charmin. Let's, Suzanne, though, a corollary to the first question that Charmin asked was, how do I pick cases? Well, what I like to say, Suzanne, I don't know if you're in here or not, but I don't pick the cases. Emily doesn't pick the cases. Really, the cases pick us. These people choose to be on the program. Okay? Some people, once they've talked to me or Emily, decide they don't want to do the program. That's fine too. But, we don't necessarily pick cases. Now, does Emily go through some Facebook pages and goes through articles and then tries to find people who are mentioned in those articles and try to find them? Yes. But really, in the end, these people choose to be on the program. I can't, of course, make them be on the program. So these people choose us. These people choose us. And that's how they get on the program, by talking to me, talking to Emily, doing some conversations beforehand, us looking into some things that I think will clarify any issues for them or for the listeners. Then I send them an interview outline, they agree with it, and then we conduct an interview. And that's how they get on the program. But they choose to do that. And when I say that, I mean in contrast to most true crime programs where they don't do interviews, so they can just pick whatever they want. They can pick D.B. Cooper this week. They can pick Amelia Earhart next week. They can pick UFOs the week after that. They can do, they can do anything they want because there's no outside parameters as to what, they can cover. So they are the ones picking the topics that they're going to discuss every week. Whereas for us, people choose to be on the program, and that's the way I look at it. So that Suzanne, I hope that answers your question, and Charmin, I hope that answers your part of that question as well. Jill, who is also the Jill who's trying to organize the Arizona meetup, jokingly, I think, asked me red pill or blue pill, which is, of course, a reference to The Matrix, one of my favorite movies. I have to admit, his favorite is one of my movies. I picked the one that Keanu Reeves picked. I would pick the one that I think that's the red pill. I would pick the one that shows me reality. I'm not a guy who wants to be lied to and wants to have smoke blown up my butt and stuff like that. I think I would pick reality. So there you go. All right, let's see what we got up here. What do we got? So we talked about Disc Golf, Hair Meetups, Think Tank, Miller Haynes poll next Thursday. Oh yes. The interview for the documentary, I already talked about that. I have no idea when this documentary is going to be out. My belief, probably it's not going to be this year, but I think it's going to be pretty comprehensive. I think it's going to be very well done, and I'm certainly glad to be a part of it. I just don't know how much I can say about it. Maybe when I get to see the filmmaker in person on Monday, we will have a conversation about how much I'm allowed to talk about it. And, and if I can, you can guarantee next Wednesday night, if he allows me to say more about it, I will. But that's happening Monday. And of course, I'll let you know how the interview goes. I think my brother is going to be here Monday morning just to see, just the kind of experience of himself. And maybe I will get him to film a little clip of it while I'm being interviewed with my phone or something. So maybe we can make that happen. All right. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this. Let me just see these comments real quick here. Indy, hey, are you planning another recap episode anytime soon? Indy, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I meant to put that on my list and I didn't. Yeah, you can expect another update episode in August. Probably around the end of August, probably when, because there's going to be some very complex time in there where I'm going to go to a disc golf tournament. I'm going to be in Orlando for like 4 or 5 days. And then the week after that, I'm driving to Pennsylvania to go to Canada fishing with my dad. And coincidentally, my friend Doug, who's going with me to the concert, he's also coming with us to Canada, and he's taking his son. So it's like a guy's fishing trip, September 7th to 14th. So I'm going to be really jammed up there for time. So I'm guessing what's going to happen is we're going to have an update episode 1 week, and then the week after that, probably, being that it's going to be the 3rd anniversary of Unfound, I'm probably going to replay the first episode of Unfound that was ever aired, which is the Suzanne Lau episode. I've been doing that every year. I did that the first year, the first anniversary, second anniversary. This will be the 3rd anniversary. So probably that's what's going to go on. We're going to have an update episode followed by an anniversary episode with some commentary by me. And then the week after that, we'll get back to regularly scheduled programming. But yes, I'm guessing you can expect an update episode at the end of August, Indy, and I deeply appreciate you reminding me of that. Great question. Thank you. Valerie, I'm not sure where the Arizona meetup's going to be. Probably Phoenix, Mesa, somewhere like that, Valerie. Jill is organizing it, but I don't know if she's in this chat room tonight. I know that she can be found in the discussion group if you'd like to find her. I hesitate to give you her last name on video, though. You'll just have to look around in there. Debbie says the think tank was amazing. Sign up for Patreon right after this tonight. Debbie, thank you very much. It's very kind. Great to have you. Storm's moving in, Michelle. Okay, hang in there. So let's talk about, and I do have some updates. I don't know how many updates right now. I have to go through the cases again. for updates on cases for that episode, but I'm sure I'll figure something out. The Tom Brown situation. Um, Here's what happened. I just need to keep this as condensed as possible. Like many other towns and cities across the United States, last July 4th, uh, Canadian Texas had a parade. And there were a couple signs set up in town on the parade route that were posted and saying, and I think that Penny got these made and everything, and which is another question I'll have to talk to her about off the air. But she had these signs posted, these posters up there, these banners, I guess you'd call them, up for the parade, and it said something to the effect of, there is a killer amongst us. Tom Brown, of course, raising awareness that Tom Brown's, what we now know is a murder, has not been solved yet. And right in the middle of this banner was, there is a killer amongst us. There were two of them. Well, the next morning when they showed back up, they had left the banners out there all night. The section that said, a killer is amongst us, was cut out. Okay, surgically cut out. It wasn't, the banners were not ripped in half. Once again, I'm not there. I've seen pictures of them, just like I guess most of you have. But somebody went in there with a knife and scissors and just cut that particular part out. A killer is amongst us on both of them. And of course, that got a lot of attention. There were a couple different people who posted this in the group. Of course, on the Moms for Tom Facebook page, it was there. A lot of different comments and theories and everything else. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of fingers being pointed in one particular direction. And we know what direction that is. And so I've been asked quite a few times, what do you think about this? And is this part of a bigger conspiracy? Is this actually part of Tom's disappearance and murder? Is it not? Was it kids? Was it adults? And of course, I've had almost a week now to think about it. All right, once again, I'm not saying that my opinion is better than anybody else's on this. However, I will tell you this. I don't believe that children did it. I think that if these were teenagers or younger, which I can't see, but let's just say teenagers, they wouldn't take the time to do what was done. Surgically cutting out, and the banners were fairly large. They would not take the time to cut that all out. That's just not the way teenagers act. If they're going to do vandalism or something like that, then if they want to get rid of, they just take the whole banner, period. They just take the whole thing, and when whoever would have shown up that next morning, the banner would just be gone. Or it'd be spray painted, something like that. Of course, that's not what happened. That's what leads me to believe it was not teenagers. This leads me to believe that it was adults. Okay, now what does that mean? Does that mean that these are adults that were involved in Thomas's disappearance and murder? Does it not? Is it supporters of Nathan Lewis? Or I've even had a couple people, unfortunately, say, is this some sort of black flag operation where somebody's just trying to make Nathan Lewis look bad and make him look like the guilty party? Or, of course, the theories are all over the place. And as I've stated about this disappearance since the time Unfound covered it, this case, I've gotten more emails, messages, theories, anything than any other case, maybe even all of other Unfound's cases put together, possibly. And so as you can imagine, I've gotten a lot of stuff regarding the signs as well. Let me just read this to catch up. Carrie's saying kids didn't do that. It's way too neat. Charlotte says teenagers are usually destructive and not so meticulous. Bryce says someone was making a statement. Carrie, who would know that the sheriff office cameras didn't work? That is all I have to say about that. Jasmine, that is sad that someone would do that. And welcome to the now. I'm not familiar with that case, and we're just kind of talking about something else right at this second. You know, I don't, I have to admit, I didn't check to see how close these signs were, these banners were to the sheriff's office. I just don't know. But I believe adults did it. But I have to admit that I am not convinced that anybody was trying to send a message, per se. I think that, I don't believe that the people who murder whoever you believe did it, and I'm not getting into that. I'm just not. Whatever you believed happened to Thomas as far as his murder, I do not believe any of those people had anything to do with these signs. Too much to lose. Because the truth is this. They have gotten away with their crime since late November of 2016. No matter who you believe did it, they've gotten away with it to this point. So why would they really go out on a main street in Canadian where a couple signs are there and cut them up? Why would they do that when they've gotten away with the major crime to this point? Doesn't make any sense. Okay, it just doesn't. I'm not saying all these things always have to be logical, but it just doesn't make any sense. To me, more likely what this is just some disgruntled Canadian resident who, you know, I'm going to say these people are out there. Okay, I'm not saying that I'm one of them, but I know that they're out there, and these people are many. Just people who wanted their July 4th just to be nice and happy. Fireworks, hot dogs, and everything else. And they're walking down the street, and they see that damn woman with those damn signs. Now, granted, this person probably feels bad for Penny. But the person is also thinking, this is supposed to be something that's a great day, the birth of our nation. Technically, our nation didn't start till 1787. I don't want to get into that. But why can't she just leave it be? I feel bad for her. To me, this is what that feels like. To me. And it's just, you know what it reminds me of? There was a story, I think, from last year sometime, where there was a prominent lawyer. I'm guessing, I think it was in New York City or Chicago. And there was all this vandalism of these cars happening on her street. And she was known as being a good person, good lawyer, upstanding. And would they put cameras out there, and would they find? It was she who was damaging these cars. And this is the way it kind of feels to me, that the reason that the part "there are killers amongst us" was taken out is because the person just wanted everybody to just have this happy 4th of July. And here Penny Brown is, and other people, all they want to do is talk about how Thomas was murdered. And that sign, those words, were getting in the way of their good time, just staying, la, 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 I don't want to know, I don't want to know. And that's what somebody went and did. Okay? I realize that that's not a very sexy theory. I realize that probably goes against what a lot of other people are thinking. But the truth is this. We as humans, we are very petty. Okay? And you might also mix some alcohol in with this. And if I talk to Penny, we've talked about it a little bit. But if, and when I talk to her again, I'm going to tell her the same thing. It sucks. It sucks. It's horrible. But let's put it this way. If they catch who did this, I'm not convinced that's going to get anybody any closer to what actually happened to Tom. Thomas was a good kid. I think everybody collectively wants this case solved. Valerie, unfortunately, I can't agree with you. I've had so many people contact me Um, about this, that I unfortunately, Valerie, that's everybody wants this case solved. I'm not convinced of that, Valerie. I happen to know many people who still believe that Thomas committed suicide. That's what they think. So I don't know. The signs were right across from the sheriff's office, or I think that's what I read on Moms for Tom. Across from the courthouse, sheriff's office is attached to courthouse. The entire courthouse is one city block. Even worse, a courthouse camera not working. Well, I just wondered if they'd be pointed in that direction anyway, Carrie. Paul, it could have been people who are just tired of the negative light on the town, but I feel like most people would have just taken the whole sign. Yeah, and Paul, I think I think that that's part of it. It's, if you're really mad about, if you're really trying to make a statement about Thomas's disappearance and now murder, you just vandalize the whole sign. That's why I'm saying that it feels to me like somebody who, on one hand, sympathizes with Penny and her family, but on the other, wishes that it would just go away. And their lesser judgment got a hold of them that night. And I just cannot look at it any other way at this point. And I really truly believe that you figure if they do somehow find out who did this, I say publicly, I know where I would start. I would start with whoever printed those banners up in the first place and find out if anybody happened to be in the store or anything when they were getting made and had any comments to make about it. That's where I'd start. Devi says, teenagers do strange things. They may want a piece of memorabilia, for lack of a better word. Well, that may be, Devi, but they're never going to be able to display it anywhere. Somebody's going to know. Heather says the signs would either be directly in front or behind the sheriff's office. Carrie, that may be, and I still am bent for Penny and her family over it, but hiding the truth doesn't fix nothing. Just like the way teens will steal street signs and things like that. Well, that's certainly true, Devi. Devi thinks, I think it's motivated by morbid fascination with the case. Ashley, I think it's an adult who doesn't like the idea that it's someone from town that murdered Tom. Then no way someone from here murdered him had to be an outsider mentality. Ashley, very well could be. Once again, I don't know about it any more than any of you do, but I'm just tapping into other vandalism things. I mean, you want to think about something else? How about that superintendent who was going to the bathroom at some other high school? Fine, upstanding young guy, or not young guy, but fine, upstanding man in the community, leader of a high school, and then he kept going to the bathroom, number 2, in this field at this track where he would run every morning. And then finally they caught him, and that was, national. I think they called him the pooper intendant instead of superintendent. Look at that. Nobody was suspected that this was this guy. Of course, a lot of people thought has to be some teenagers, something like that. It was a superintendent. This kind of feels like that to me. Michelle says, I think the parents of young children didn't want them to scare the kids around town. Very young kinds of kids that has probably been hidden from them. Okay. I can't fathom why Tom would be murdered. Well, that's a whole discussion within itself, Charlotte. Darla, when I put up my son's sign like this, it was a man that lived right around the neighborhood, thought it was ruining his property value, tried to start a petition to remove it. That didn't work. Darla, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Darla, thank you for writing that. Exactly. People have their own interests in mind. If that means they need to cut up a sign to make themselves feel better, they'll do it. That's just who we are as humans. We're capable of the best and we're capable of the worst. Paula, you may have said this, but could it have been done to keep the story out there? Maybe Hart was in the right place. Well, that would be what we call a black flag operation, Paula, and I certainly hope that's not the case. I certainly hope. That is not what Thomas Brown's investigation needs right now. Is, false vandalism. Darla, mine were on 5-foot posts cemented into the ground because I thought someone would vandalize them. Okay. Bryce, it would have been easier to have just took the entire sign, not taking them time to cut it up. I agree. I agree. I don't believe it was someone who's very sympathetic. Seems heartless to me, Cherie says. Um, yeah. Well, it's certainly heartless. I'm not. I'm not saying. I agree with Cherie saying that I don't believe it was someone who's very sympathetic. Um, sympathetic. I mean, you can be sympathetic and unsympathetic at the same time. You can feel bad for somebody else, but at the same time, you want to feel good too. And that, once again, to me, and I've used a couple examples already: the superintendent, the lawyer who was vandalizing cars, people who you would have never thought would do something like that, and they do it out of anger. Who knows what the guy was? The pooper intended. I don't know what he was thinking. And of course, he's tried to fight it in court and everything. I think that I think what people found out is he was a lot weirder than everybody believed. Um, but there's a lot of stories like this where there's vandalism or something weird, and when you find out who it is, it's somebody nobody ever suspects. Um, Heather says they have to know Penny is going to replace them. Yeah, well, probably Heather, and they'll maybe go about doing it again. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I think it was something along the lines they're having this 4th of July, everybody's having a great time, and somebody came upon those signs. And everybody else is joyous, and, here Penny Brown is, they're a killer amongst us, Thomas Brown. I'm not saying she's wrong. I think she should have done it. I'm not criticizing that. But I can see in some people's minds, it's just like, son of a gun. Come on now, it's the 4th of July. Can't she just let it go for one day? People are like that. I think you've already figured out. When it comes to human nature, I'm very much a cynic, and that's I approach all of these cases as a cynic. So that's I still say I'm not convinced that anybody who had anything to do with Thomas's disappearance and murder had anything to do with this. I don't think it had anything to do with somebody who is a supporter of Nathan Lewis. Surely that person would know by doing that, it only makes Nathan Lewis look worse, not better. Surely somebody would know that. So that's why I continue to say that it's somebody totally disconnected from all of it. I'm not here. Everybody's opinion is perfectly fine to me. All right, I'm not here to argue with anybody. We don't know. Hopefully they do catch whoever it was, and then we'll know. And I may be wrong. We may all be wrong. But that's the way it strikes me. Let's take another question. Amanda asked me, and I don't know if Amanda's in here, so that's all I have for Thomas Brown. It's a horrible situation, and if I hear anything, I'll let you know. And of course, I'm going to be talking to Penny, I'm sure, about this. But we've had a little talk about it since last Thursday, but not a very long one. But, of course, anything she and I talk about would be private anyway. But I'm going to tell her the same thing, and I'm sure we'll throw around some ideas. And I know that some listeners are probably going to be helping her who live in the area, try to figure out who did it. So Marcus says, I don't believe the killer had anything to do with the sign incident. Okay, Marcus. So that was the Thomas Brown stuff for this evening. Of course, if anybody knows or anybody who watches this and they suspect they do know who did it, I have to admit that in thinking about it, it does remind me of the movie Election, which is which is a fantastic movie where signs were vandalized, banners were vandalized. Of course, if anybody knows anything, they should come forward. If they suspect something, they saw something, they should come forward. No matter if they think Nathan Lewis himself did it, or Pine Gregory did it, or a janitor did it, or a truck driver did it, or some teenagers did it, whatever. And let's just get to the bottom of this. And the sooner we know who did this, the sooner we can move on to getting back to just thinking about Thomas Brown's murder and who did that instead of us having to think about these signs. Amanda asked me, sometimes guests sound confused. And she's puzzled by this because I thought you said that many times when you're interviewing these people, it's like their second or third time talking to them. Amanda, if you're watching, that's a very insightful question, and I think I can explain it to you. Yeah, Heather says check the stores to see you bought a box cutter or X-Acto knife. Heather, it's certainly a good idea for Canadian Texas residents. But Amanda, if you're going to be watching this, or if you're in here, you have to remember something. That all of the interviews that are done on Unfound, the guests approve everything that we talk about. All right, so yes, they get an outline of the interview that we're going to conduct. And there are sample questions on there. Of course, I'm not going to type out every question that I'm going to ask them. That would take hours. But I give them an idea of sample questions that will come up during that section of the interview. Okay, now, if you're talking about, well, sometimes they seemed a little confused, well, during the course of an interview, even if you do an outline, still, you're not sure in what direction the interview is going to go. And in fact, sometimes you'll even hear me say during an interview, wow, I'm learning that for the first time. There are still things that in the vetting process, by talking about the case and asking their questions, there's still things that don't get covered or get missed or get confused or construed, and maybe I think I already know it, and I don't do that, and then we get into the interview, and then the guest says something that I don't anticipate. All of these cases are somewhat complex, and so there's no way to plan for every instance of us going off on a tangent. So, but when we do get off on those tangents, I am required, due to my position, I have to ask those questions. So if the guest says something that I don't quite understand, I ask a question, and it may be a question they've never heard before. It may be. You just don't know where these conversations I don't want anybody to ever think that the interviews are scripted as if it's some play. I say this, they say that. I say this, they say that. That's not what it is. I mean, it's not scripted. It's just an outline. There's no words that they particularly have to say, but it's just a regular conversation. And I think we've all been in conversations with people that we know very well about topics that we've talked about before. And once in a while, your person you've known for 30 years will say something you've never heard them say before. And you'll be like, oh, really? Well, let's talk about that. And so Amanda, if you're hearing that once in a while where maybe a guest sounds confused or something, that's probably what's going on. Probably. And trust me, I've had guests tell me this. You asked me questions that I've never been asked before. And these are people that have been living with disappearance, a missing daughter or son for 20, 30 years. And they're telling me, you know what? I never had somebody ask me that question before about that. Wonder why. So, and I'm not patting myself on the back. That's what they say. I don't know that nobody's asked them that question before. All I know is there's something that I don't know, and I'm trying to find out. Okay, that's it. So I understand that sometimes my guests are going to sound a little confused, but I think that eventually in every interview, we eventually work through that. I hope we do. I hope. Michelle says, there's so much to every case, it is impossible to discuss every detail. People tell me I never said this or that about Brandy, but I could take months to tell people all I know about her missing, right? So, it's just, so yes, sometimes, and it's only, I think only going off maybe these little tangents in interviews, that we can find out new things and can establish new facts and new information. Because a lot of people, when they get to me, especially if they've been living with a disappearance for many years and have done a lot of interviews, at some point they do start giving canned answers. That doesn't mean they're not answers that aren't filled with emotion. They are. They're meaningful answers and they're the truth. But sometimes when they get into that mode of just answering canned questions with canned answers, it's amazing how things get forgotten and things get overlooked and everything else. So when I talk to people for the first time, I try to get them out of their comfort zone regarding their own disappearance. Okay, that's what I really try to do. Um, and sometimes that happens in the interview that you hear as well. That we start into a section of the outline, asking about what happened that day, and then something will occur to me, and I'll ask them a question, and they'll be like, "Oh, I don't well, let's think about that." It happens, and I'm not trying to put them on the spot, but my job is to ask questions like that, even if we've had 3 or 4 conversations before that. If something comes to my mind while we're doing the interview that is being recorded for the episode, I'm going to ask the question. It's just going to happen. Debbie says, your interviewing skills are top notch, Ed. I've heard you provide food for thought to these family members. Thank you, Debbie. That's very kind. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to do. Thank you. Bryce says, getting back to the signs, I would think fingerprints would have been left on the top to steady the slicing of the signs. Bryce, you got to hope that somebody does something there, some forensics on those signs. You got to hope, but I think we know who's going to be in charge of the investigation. That's all I'm going to say about that. D asked me, I'm gonna take one more question, and then we are going to finish this up previewing Friday's case. D asked me, a case like Logan Tucker, why not would you cover it? Now, for people that don't know, just to really break this down very quickly, Logan Tucker was a little boy who disappeared, and his mother was eventually convicted of killing him. Okay, even though his remains have not been found. And yes, we do cover cases like that. For example, Angie Yarnell. Her husband went to jail for a few years for what he claimed was an unintended involuntary manslaughter, something like that. She allegedly fell off the deck of their house, hit her head, died, and then he claimed that he was going to bury her somewhere, and then she fell into the water. Of course, nobody believes his story. Nobody believes his story. But yes, we do cover cases where somebody has been convicted of a disappearance, even though the missing person's remains have not been found. We do that. Not to my knowledge, Angie Yarnell is the only case that we've covered that's been like that. In 130 some, that's been the only one. But I do realize there are other cases out there like that. So the general answer to covering a case like Logan Tucker's is yes, we do. However, on the other hand, I have to admit that a lot of what Unfound does is about trying to identify who did something and why it was done, and secondary probably is where the person might be, because although we do talk about it, we talk about, well, there's a good chance maybe this person was buried, this person was thrown in a dumpster. We do talk about those things, but I think Unfound is more about trying to determine the actual facts of what actually happened that day, because that is what usually leads to figuring out who did it. Okay. You know, as far as having somebody already in jail, all it then comes down to is where is the body? And frankly, for the most part, in most missing persons cases, they could be anywhere. And it's tough to do a really good analysis of that um, when all of those other things have already been established. You know, um, it's just covering, I think, cases where somebody has been convicted is a little tough because then we allegedly, seemingly, probably already know what happened if their story uh, can be verified. Now, in Angie Yarnell's case, I don't believe his story, and so that's why we covered it. So, the general answer to a case like Logan Tucker's, where somebody's still missing, but somebody's been convicted of the disappearance of the murder, we do those, but there probably is some criteria that the case is going to have to uh, satisfy. But once again, we don't. To my knowledge, at least in talking with Emily, we just don't run across many cases like that. Most of them are person is missing and nobody's ever spent a day in jail for it. So there's that. So I hope that answers your question, D. Let's go to this Friday's case. This Friday, I did the interview. Was it yesterday? Time flies. Yesterday, or maybe it was Monday. It's just so my mind's so messed up. We're covering the disappearance of Donnie Martin III. He disappeared from Madison Heights, Michigan on August 3rd, 2017. So once again, we're covering a case that's fairly new, but it is alleged that even though he was in Madison Heights, that he most likely disappeared in the within the borders of Detroit, Michigan itself, and in the area of a place that some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with, and that is called 8 Mile, which of course was made famous by the movie by Eminem. He disappeared in that area of Detroit on August 3rd, 2017. As you could probably guess, Donnie had his problems. He had an addiction, and we're going to be talking about that. But so we're going to be talking about the facts, but you should know there are some things that we couldn't talk about because his disappearance seems to be part of a larger investigation going on in that area of Detroit. Okay, so there's certain things that my guest knows but couldn't say. And we did our best. I did my best with what I was given. What makes this interview unique is that the guest is Donnie Martin's stepmother, Julie Say Martin. And Say is, or C Martin, Julie C Martin, Seay. I think her maiden name was Leslie C, Seay. And then she got married, so she's now hyphenated C Martin, Martin. And Donnie is her husband's son. Well, Leslie's sister-in-law disappeared back in 1988, and you can look that case up. Her name is Julie C, Seay, and she disappeared from Daytona Beach, Florida in 1988. So this is now the second disappearance that has happened to Leslie. And that is why the title of this episode is called When Lightning Strikes Again. Because lightning struck once, of course we know how destructive lightning can be. It struck in 1988, and the way that Leslie was related to Julie is that Julie was married, they had just gotten divorced, to Leslie's brother. And you should know that Leslie's brother is not a suspect in that he was many hundreds and hundreds of miles away when Julie disappeared. He could prove that. So Leslie's had this happen to her twice. And so we do have a conversation with her, you know, the difference between 1988 and now. You know, how did it feel to have to go through this all over again. What also makes this interesting is that Leslie, the guest for Donnie's episode, is a pastor. And so we get into at least a little bit about her faith getting her through all of this. So, once again, Donnie's case does not have as much information in it compared, of course, to like Molly Miller and Colt Haynes or Jonathan Estes's, to name a couple recent ones where there was tons and tons and tons of information that we had to talk about. And of course, the interviews were very long. And this one, we of course do cover as much as we can, but I also talked to Leslie about, her experience with dealing with this now twice. And you should know, yes, we are going to be covering Julie's disappearance. I'm thinking before the summer's over. There's just a few things that I need to look into first regarding Julie's disappearance, frankly, if it could be connected to some other disappearances. But that is the case for this Friday. It is the disappearance of Donnie Martin III. The episode is called When Lightning Strikes Again. He disappeared August 3rd, 2017 from the Madison Heights / Detroit, Michigan area. And the interview is with his stepmother, Leslie C. Martin, who is also the sister-in-law, former sister-in-law of Julie C., who disappeared from Daytona Beach in 1988. So that's all I got for you tonight. We talked about my disc golf, how I didn't play too bad this past weekend, and I'll be playing again Labor Day weekend. My hair, I think I'm going to eventually go for the John Wick look. That should be sometime this fall, probably. We got meetups happening in Dallas and Amarillo, and Cherie says there's going to be one in Houston in August. Please contact Miranda if you're interested in one in the New England states. The think tank, talked about that. The Miller-Haynes poll, talked about that. Next Thursday, going to Iron Maiden with one of my best friends of all time down in the Fort Lauderdale area. Interview for a documentary film coming up this Monday. Spotify is now fixed. We talked about Tom Brown and the vandalism of the signs in Canadian, Texas during the 4th of July parade. And then I took some questions, some really good questions. And then I previewed Friday's case. So how do you spell the last name again? C-S-E-A-W is Julie C's last name. She disappeared from Daytona Beach, Florida in 1988. She is on NamUs and on the Charlie Project. So that's all I got, everyone. Thank you so much for watching tonight. Bryce says Amarillo News Channel 7 has announced a segment on Thomas for tonight. Well, if anybody can link to it, maybe post a video in the discussion group, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Bryce, for keeping your eyes peeled for that. Great. Thank you. I wonder what that'll be about. But I'm going to go. Thank you all. Thank you for joining me tonight. You will hear me Friday, and I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the week. Good night, everyone. See ya.